Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna. I'd like to welcome everyone for our discussion today on this very, very important topic of reading Srila Prabhupada's books every day. Srila Prabhupada's books, his transcendental purports, are our foundation for all of our spiritual life and are a foundation for International Society for Krishna Consciousness to prosper and grow for the next 10,000 years. During these series of talks, discussions, and interviews, we invite devotees who have lived their life by reading, absorbing, and realizing Srila Prabhupada's books. Today, we have the good fortune to have with us His Grace Radheshyam Prabhu. His Grace Radheshyam Prabhu created a revolution in the lives of young people starting from the 90s, from the Radha Kunj Bihari temple on the Camp Road, if I remember correctly, in Pune. And then that revolution spread across all Pune and across many, many cities. And within his tutelage, within his guidance, hundreds and thousands of young people have taken to seriously reading Srila Prabhupada's books and sharing what is given there. On that note, I like to invite His Grace Radheshyam Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you so much for giving us the time to hear from you about the glories of Srila Prabhupada's transcendental books. Radheshyam Prabhu, please share with us what was your first encounter and where it was when you first received the nectar of Srila Prabhupada's books.
Okay, so I was a student of IIT Bombay for my master's degree. And the first day when I reached IIT, I put the luggage in my room and I asked the students, is there any spiritual organization nearby where I can meet some saintly people? I have some questions. Because I had probably gone to some 10, 12 organizations prior to that, looking for the truth. I don't want to mention the name of those organizations. So they told me that just behind the IIT, there is an ITI, and next to that there was a Chinmayananda, Chinmaya Mission was there. So I had gone there first day, but the Swamiji was out of station. So I was looking for some, spiritual guidance at that time. So I couldn't get immediately. So I came back to my room and I was reading the books which I had gathered from various organizations prior to that. And I had a collection of probably 50 to 100 spiritual books from different organizations. So one observation I found was many of those organizations were impersonalistic organizations, and they were giving a very ambiguous understanding of God. And many of them said actually that in a perfected stage, you will merge and become God. That's what they were saying, which I was not happy about. And so I had actually been studying many Bible courses since my 5th standard. My 5th standard to 9th standard, probably 40 Bible courses, correspondence courses I had done. So I was, then they were inviting me to join church and become a preacher in 9th standard. But then after that, my father gave me a Bhagavad Gita and I went to many Hindu organizations also. So I was very tired of going to so many organizations and not able to ascertain the truth when I came to IIT. So first time in my mess, I got a flyer saying that there is a Bhagavad Gita class in Hostel 9 Super Lounge, all are welcome. I was so thrilled, this invitation has come to me. So I immediately proceeded to the hostel. I saw a Maruti car in which some very peculiar personalities were sitting in a tall and very handsome looking, clean shaven headed, with shika, western bodied devotees. 3-4 of them got out with mridangas, kartals and books and feedbacks. That was my first visit to a ISKCON program. They appeared like having come from a different planet, you know. I was wondering, where are these people from? Who are they? Very curious. The first person I saw, the Vaishnava, was His Holiness Bhakti Vishnu Madhav Maharaj. He was the one who was giving the class. And although he was a Westerner, he quoted so many shlokas profusely in Sanskrit language and spoke a lot about Vishnu, Lakshmi, and Krishna and everything. I was deeply touched in the class. And after the class, they gave very amazing prasadam. Everybody took prasad. And then they also immediately showed me some books. So I picked up some books. One of the first books I saw was Coming Back. So then I got that book Coming Back and SSR, Science of Self-Realization. So 3 stories in the book Coming Back deeply affected me. The story of Bharat Maharaj, the story of Chitraketu, and the story of Ajamila. And I would read them over and over again several times because I felt that, you know, Bharat Maharaj is suffering just like me. Now I am also passing through this body and I'm wandering in millions of species like this. And Chitraketu said, the child told Chitraketu that I have had so many mothers and fathers. I understood that one has to remember the Lord at the time of death, and then one will go back to God. And I didn't have a clear idea of, God at that time. While reading these books, I found these books very simple, easy to grasp, a nice language, and Science of Self-Realization, Prabhupada's interviews with Dr. Robinson and others. Very interesting it was for me. And then still I had many questions which I was not getting answers. But then I went to Juhu temple subsequently, where His Grace Rasaraja Prabhu, His Grace Mukund Madhav Prabhu, Jiva Goswami Prabhu, all these Ramarup Prabhu, Kapila Prabhu. They all have given me a lot of time. I owe a lot to these people. And they would take me to the Chowpatty beach there in Juhu. And they would, hours and hours, they would give answers to my questions. And subsequently, after 6 months, I met His Grace Devamrit Prabhu in those days. And when I asked him a question, please tell me straight, is God personal or impersonal? So he told me, God is impersonal and much more, he said. And I asked him, much more means what more remains after you realize Him? He said, that you will know in the future classes you come. So he gave me the copy of Teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He told me that because you already gone to many organizations and you are already talking about personal and impersonal, he especially told me to read 2 pastimes. Sarvam Bhattacharya Deliverance by Mahaprabhu and Prakashanand Saraswati Deliverance.
Prakashanand Saraswati, yes.
Those 2 I read and I was very satisfied with the arguments presented there in those 2 chapters. Understanding of personal, impersonal. It was very deeply satisfying. So I found that Prabhupada books are, very thoroughly, honestly, in a very simple and straightforward manner, presenting the truth without twisting the truth or interpreting the truth. I loved the transparency with which Prabhupada is presenting and the honesty with which he is presenting. That's what really deeply touched me in the early days. And then after that, I started reading Bhagavad Gita.
You have a very, very vivid memory, Prabhu, of those first encounters. It seems to have left a very deep impact.
Such an impact that the very same day when I went to Hostel 9 Super Lunch program, I came to my hostel and wrote a 1-page letter to all the hostel mates. I told them, see, Westerners are coming and preaching in India. What are we guys doing? We are rotting and heading towards materialism. So I wrote and put up on a notice board. All the boys drew cartoons on that and joked about me. So, of course...
Were you alone? Were you alone in this period? I mean, was it just the books and the visiting devotees, or were there others around you in your hostel?
Actually, I was in my hostel. I was the only one going to the program. From my hostel to another hostel, I used to go for the program. Eventually, I made friendship with other devotees who are coming for the program. And after I met Devamrit Prabhu, then we formed a group, Gauranga Prabhu, myself, Paramahams Prabhu, like that, 5-6 of us. Then we started cooking together in the hostel, staying together.
46 or 5 or 6?
Actually, we were 5 or 6 16-rounders. And there were about 32 devotees who would come for the morning program, 32 devotees. They would come to the terrace to chant. But they were all chanting different number of rounds they were chanting.
Yes.
But it was he would give us one book. Devamrit Prabhu would give us one book. After you go for the weekend program, he will ask you, how many pages have you read? What did you like? He would ask us.
Mm.
And that's what drove us to read the books, because we have to complete a book and give it back to him, and he will give a new book. And according to the individual's nature, he will choose a book and give.
Oh,
He would do that. Like for me, the first book he gave was Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. That's the book he gave.
correct.
For
Correct.
different people, he would give different books. And this
Yes.
also is something I like very much, because, when you get a mentor who knows your situation, climate of your heart, and accordingly he guides you, it becomes very easy for us. Actually, he would.
How many years back was this, Prabhu? How many years
This
back
was
was this?
1990. This was 1991. Yeah.
Almost 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, over this period of 30 years, can you share with us what impact has reading Prabhupada's books every day had on your personal and spiritual life, Prabhu?
Yeah. Actually, I found Prabhupada books very interesting, very enlivening, and very logical. I'll tell you a few examples. It will make it very clear. Like Prabhupada says, it is not enough for one to accept that there is a creator. One should try to study the nature of the creator, he says.
Yes.
Like Dr. Benford met Prabhupada. Prabhupada asked, see, Dr. Benford, you guys are studying about this grass and writing 2 bulky volumes. But without reading your 2 bulky volumes, the cow is eating grass and going. So what is the use of your bulky books? He asked. And Dr. Benford said, no, Swamiji, you see, it's a sheer interest. We just want to know what is in this grass. So we study it with, Prabhupada said, you are writing about nucleus and protoplasm, cytoplasm and all these things. What is the use of your sheer research to know what it is? Instead of studying the grass, you can study who put the grass here, Prabhupada said. And if you know that, then you can ask who put the sun, who put the moon, who put me here, and what is the purpose. So Prabhupada says, let's try to study the nature of the creator. You are a small operator in a small bodily machine, and God is a big operator in the cosmic machine. Study about that big operator, how he created the world, why he created the world, study about him. Second thing is you also should inquire about the purpose of his creation. There has to be a purpose. Like there is a fan, it's rotating. The purpose of the fan is to give me air. The purpose of the light, bulb is to give me light. Similarly, the purpose of the universe is it's a house of correction. It's a place for reformation, so that we can return back to our original state. So one should ask the purpose. And thirdly, it says, not only one should know the purpose, one should know how to align with the Lord's will to fulfill that purpose. So this is what I found in Prabhupada. Very precisely, he presents a philosophy with such logic and reason. Like once when he met a Christian priest, the priest was saying, Swamiji, we follow Bible, you follow Hindu scriptures. Prabhupada said, what are you talking? Prabhupada said, my philosophy I am talking and what you guys are talking, there is no difference. And Prabhupada asked him, what is sin? He asked, and that person was saying many things. Prabhupada said, very simple definition. Sin means disobedience to God by disregarding his proprietorship. Do you agree? He asked. And then he said, yes. And then Prabhupada said, you have 10 commandments in the Old Testament. And each of the commandments says what to do, what not to do. So there are God's laws which you have to align. So in this way, you find that Prabhupada presented the truth as a universal truth and did not present it in a sectarian way.
Yes.
Like Prabhupada
so far you shared with us, Prabhu, that there were many books you had read before.
Yeah.
Then you shared with us that when you read Prabhupada's books, first of all, through teachings of Lord Chaitanya, you got the answer to impersonalism or personalism.
Yeah.
And you also highlighted that Srila Prabhupada presents very simply and in very systematic way.
Yeah.
Is there any other distinction that arose in your heart about Srila Prabhupada's books, transcendental books, vis-a-vis all other so-called or spiritual books that are out there? What else comes to your mind when one wants to distinguish?
There are 2 very distinct things that I found in Prabhupada's books which made me commit my life to this organization. Those 2 things which were completely, totally different from what I read in the other books. The first thing is that many other paths were teaching that, you have to shut off your senses and go to recluse, like you go to Himalayas, and then you have to be austere. So they were teaching about, gaining moksha, getting liberated from this world, from getting entangled in this world, and by shutting off the senses. But what I found in Prabhupada's books is just the opposite. He taught actually that the senses need not be given up because the senses are given by the Lord. They should be spiritualized. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchate. So, like our children in Pune in our school, they put up a song, I use my eyes to see Krishna, see Krishna, see Krishna. They sing a song. I use my eyes to see him. Similarly with the ears, with the nose, with the tongue. So Ambarish Maharaj used all his senses. So this is one thing I liked very much, that we can actually practice Krishna consciousness by utilizing our senses, which God-given senses, and that itself can purify our heart. That's one thing I like the most. Second thing, the impersonalists are talking about their own deliverance, whereas Prabhupada actually said, we don't want to go to recluse. We want to live in the heart of the city and reach to the suffering souls and help them also realize Krishna consciousness. This is something which was very striking to me. And eventually I came to understand that this is what distinguishes a Vaishnava from others. Vaishnava is a paradukha dukhi. Like Ramanujacharya wanted to go to the top of the tower and declare their holy name. Vasudev, that also he prayed that let all the jivas be delivered. Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas Thakur were sent by Lord Chaitanya. So when I read all these things, I was thrilled. Prabhupada himself, after a couple of heart attacks, went to US and preached and propagated it all over the world. So this made me commit my life. Because I don't want to sit in my own cozy ivory towers and go back to moksha myself. I would like to do something for the world. So doing something for the suffering souls and utilizing our senses in Lord's service, these two are the most appealing things to me for committing my life in this organization, which I read very vividly in Prabhupada's books.
Yes, Prabhu. Very, very important points that you highlight compared to what we'll hear anywhere else. Prabhu, you obviously are carrying the message of Srila Prabhupada's books in your heart. We often also hear Prabhupada said himself that he lives forever through his books.
Yeah.
Over the last 30 years, what realization have you had that you would like to share with us on this statement that Srila Prabhupada lives forever through his books?
Yeah. So when I get up in the morning, I hear, as soon as I come out of the mosquito net, the first thing I put on Prabhupada's lecture immediately, even while winding up my bedding and going to bathroom, taking bath and everything. So some lectures of Prabhupada I hear 20 times or 25 times, same lecture over and over again. It is too good. The message is loud and clear, and the examples are very vivid. And I loved it, and I would like to hold them so that I can also repeat it to others and make it my asset. Some of the nice examples he gives. So my heart resonates with his sound vibration very strongly. The resonance principle we study in science. When you vibrate a fork, another fork also vibrates like that.
Yes.
Yeah. Similarly, when Prabhupada speaks, it appears to us that he is right here speaking, and it's crystal clear the explanation that he is giving, and there is no ambiguity, there is no beating around the bush. So therefore, I am deriving a lot of nourishment and strength in my personal practice of Krishna consciousness, leave alone speaking to others. That comes later. So just like somebody may be eager to eat a plate of prasadam, that is the way I approach Prabhupada's sound vibration in the morning when I am hearing the lectures. I try to hear about 3 to 4 lectures a day on an average 20 minutes each. Beginning my prasadam also here in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. And sometimes the same lecture I may hear about 15, 20 times. Good lectures, very special lectures, I hear them. And sometimes after hearing the lecture, I go to Folio and cut that lecture from there and then put it in my computer and I highlight some of the examples and all. And I keep it with me so that when I go to students, I can speak those lectures to them. I do that also. And apart from that, when I'm reading Prabhupada books also, my style of study is I underline whenever there are important points coming. One example I'll tell you, to cut off the tie of affection means to broaden the field of spiritual activities. Prabhupada says, And then he gives the example of the 6 band of Goswamis. He gives the example. So such sentences I will underline. Another place Prabhupada says, the living entity is so made by the will of the Lord that he experiences utmost happiness while putting himself in a state of absolute dependence. So this Prabhupada writes it in the Bhishma Pitama section, he writes. So these kind of golden sentences I call it, and I also call it golden purports also. So I have, if you see my Bhagavatam, it's full of underlines, many places. One time I asked my spiritual master, Maharaj, some people are criticizing me for underlining in the Bhagavatam. What do you think about it? Is it like, cutting the deity? Some people say you should not do that. Maharaj said, no, this is like ornamenting the deity, he said.
Oh, so beautiful.
No, he said, and he said, you should not strike any line. That's like, Yogakshemam Mahamyaham and Arjunacharya did. But you can underline below, because why do you underline? You like it, you love it, you want to remember it, you want to repeat it. Therefore, you underline. It's like ornamenting the Lord, he said. Then after that, I got double confidence after that. Then I have been, so I underline.
And how many hours do you, or how much time do you give? I mean, you're a very, very busy manager and preacher.
On an average, say I respond to emails and phone calls about 3 to 4 hours a day. I do. And another 2 to 3 hours, I prepare PowerPoints and notes materials for my lectures and everything. And another 2-3 hours, I may be preaching, Another couple of hours only I spend in the management activities directly, because many of the things I convey through emails. Actually, one of the ways I manage is I follow the formula of TEEE, we call it, and train, educate, engage, empower. Every person who comes across our group of youth practice, first we have a training and education, which means theoretical classes are also there, and we train them in the morning program and leadership and all those things. Basically 3 things: preaching, managing, counseling. And we have courses.
And within this program that you just described, how much time are you able to give to read? Surely
I give exclusively, my reading is how I will tell you, Prabhu. I went 2 years to Govardhan Eco Village. 2 full years I studied there, full Bhagavatam and CC. Every day we used to attend a class of 3 hours in the morning, and 3 hours used to study for the test in the afternoon.
Yes.
And this I spent 2 years. So after that I came to understand where is what in the Bhagavatam and CC.
Yes.
And after that, now when I came back, now what I do generally nowadays, like I am speaking currently 3 days in a week on demons in Vrindavan Leela. So there are 21 demons. So then I go to the 10th canto and I exclusively focus my attention in Prabhupada's books on reading this section only now. Now I spoke on Gajendra Moksha Leela some time ago and Ajamila Upakhyan also. So then I will take only that section of Prabhupada's books and read. And nowadays I take only sections of Bhagavatam to read, and I also deliver lectures. So one thing I found, I have to give a self-assignment to myself. Then only my reading will be very steady. Otherwise I may haphazardly read here and there. So I take one section and I complete that whole section, go to the next one. Like that. Like did Gita Rahasya. So Gita Rahasyam, I had to read all the 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. Then I did Bhagavata Rasamalayam, chapter 1 to 19 of the first canto. I prepared PPTs also. I studied the whole chapter and presented one lecture like that. Then after Gita, Bhagavatam, then NOD, I call it as a Bhavataranga. There are 27 sittings. We presented the 19 chapters of NOD. So in this way, I get opportunity to take a bulk reading, and I do a lot of hours of reading and preparing PPTs also. Because without a teacher has to know 10 times a student, they say, So we have to study more. Generally, we can present. So
on an average, you're doing a couple of hours every day, despite your busy schedule.
No, minimum, and also preparing the materials after study. And in my lectures, if any of the videos you see, I'll be immediately going to folio and referring many shlokas or quotes of Prabhupada. Like nowadays, I'm doing everyday CC reading, which is actually 1 hour 15 minutes, evening 5:15 to 6:30, and I'm going Madhya Lila, chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, like that we are going now. Every day 1 hour 15 minutes. So that gives me a systematic reading also.
Prabhu, what impact has reading Prabhupada's books yourself as a lead, first as a manager, as a preacher, you're reading every day. What impact has it had in your preaching and prachar? And how would it be different if somebody is not actually taking shelter?
It has a tremendous impact in every walk of devotee's life, I can say. For example, one example I'll tell you, the Srimad Bhagavatam. If you see, Vasudeva was put in a fight or flight situation. He cannot flee away. He cannot fight with Kamsa also. So the arguments that Vasudeva gave very maturely. So when I go to Bhagavatam, Prabhupada gives how conflict resolution was done by Arjuna in the case of Ashwatthama's killing. Ashwatthama was not killed. Draupadi and Yudhishthira on one side, Bhima and Krishna on the other side. So you find that Prabhupada gives very beautiful, thorough analysis of the situation.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I find in my leadership situations, for many of the devotees who bring problems to me, it becomes very easy for me to solve it simply by taking one situation from Bhagavatam. I tell them, see, this is how it was sorted. Like one devotee came and asked me, Prabhuji, two people give equivocal instruction what to do. And I immediately told Priyavrat's situation. See, Priyavrat's guru was Narada, and Swayambhava Manu wanted this, and Brahma said this. Then I said that it became very easy. And so therefore, I find Bhagavatam and Prabhupada's explanations immediately coming to help in my daily management. Like,
Right.
Kalia, for example, see, Kalia did not allow Garuda to eat his quota, which was given monthly. He said, why should he come and eat in our community? He'll come and eat. So actually, Vasuki had made agreement with Brahma.
Correct.
And all monkeys agreed, Vasuki agreed, Brahma agreed, but Kalia was whimsical. Correct, no?
Yes.
See, Brahma is like GBC and our Vasuki is like temple president, and Kalia is one of the citizens, in his kingdom. But you find he doesn't follow anybody. He's completely whimsical minded. So then I spoke about it in one class that devotee should not be whimsical minded. The devotee said, Prabhu, Bhagavatam has immediate relevance to our lives.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
So from this example and the other examples that you gave, Prabhu, we can see that when we use, in general, we use the word, Shastra Chakshu, looking at life through the eyes of the scriptures, but practically you are able to do this in all walks of life, as you just described. And have you ever encountered any situation in life for which Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Charitamrita has not offered you a solution? I ask my question again. Have you ever encountered any situation in your life for which Srila Prabhupada's words have not offered a solution?
Not till date. Till date, I have not faced such a situation. In fact, I have read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits before. When I read Prabhupada's books, I found that whatever rudimentary principles Stephen has given in his books, and Prabhupada has elaborated on them in a spiritual manner, in a far more deeper way. So I find there is a great possibility for the devotees to learn management principles from the Bhagavatam directly. So currently I'm preparing 60 workshops, 60 topics called SLATE, we call it, SLATE, Servant Leaders Applied Training and Education. If you go to www.slate.radheshamdas.com, if you see, you will see the syllabus there, and almost 20 of the topics I have prepared already, 20 of the topics. So they are all workshops for the leaders based on Bhagavatam and CC.
So all answers are given, and in your 30 years of practice, you have found personally all the answers through Prabhupada's books.
Yes, Prabhu, very much.
Then what message will you give? A lot of times devotees come and they say, they come with problems, Prabhupada himself says the answer to all my problems is in my books.
Yeah.
Then devotees, we also feel they're carrying other books, outside books, or others, they're looking for things outside. What was different in your life, Prabhu, that you were able to find answers and others are not able to find answers in Srila Prabhupada's books? What was the main difference?
I feel the main reason I feel, Prabhu, His Holiness Gaur Govind Maharaj says that if you are floating in the ocean in the top surface, you will only get fishes. But if you dive deep in the ocean, then you'll get diamonds. So the ocean is called Ratna Garbha, he says. Yes. So many people actually, in my opinion, if they take out time to regularly study Prabhupada purports, and we have to do the contemplation, reflection, the plan of action. All these things are very necessary in order for us to be able to draw full nourishment from Prabhupada books. Because first thing we do is Shravana. Now, Prabhupada himself gave the example of a cow. He said a cow first swallows the cud and then sits in one place. The cow has 6 bags in the body, 6 stomachs. So first it takes in the first stomach, then it brings it out and chews and puts second, like that it goes. So ruminates, and then she gives milk. So Prabhupada said, similarly devotees, Prabhupada said, hear many, many classes or read many, many books and then sit and ruminate. And the rumination is actually reflection and contemplation. And then make a plan of action. And then like the cow gives milk, we have to preach, Prabhupada said. If a cow is eating very nicely, she should give milk also. So Janma Sarthaka Kori, Karapara Upakar. We should do that also.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I can say a few words about how I do the contemplation and reflection. I can, can I take a couple of minutes more to say
Yes,
about?
please. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like for example, say, I will compare Dhruva's austerities versus Hiranyakashipu's austerities, for example. Now, Hiranyakashipu actually was anti-Vishnu. Dhruva was pro-Vishnu. Now, Hiranyakashipu wanted a crooked path to cheat Brahma. Dhruva wanted an honest path for attaining impossible goal. You will see that. And you will find, Hiranyakashipu actually hated his son Prahalad and tormented him. Later on also you will find. And he actually propagated anti-Brahminical culture. Whereas you will find Dhruva Maharaj became a Vishnu Bhakta, aligning with the pure devotee Narada. Yes. And Hiranyakashipu did not follow a pure devotee. So like this, when you compare, and Prabhupada says, read my books scrutinizingly, Prabhupada says.
Correct.
Like another example I'll tell you, Ajamila saw one dirty scene in the forest. Now, Narada saw one dirty scene in Mandakini Ganga when Alakur Manigri were nude and they were doing something dirty. Both saw the dirty scene. You find Ajamila falling down. On the other hand, Narada delivering those fellows.
Yes.
The fellows. So now I would ask a question to the students. Why did Narada had the strength to deliver them? And then Ajamila fell down like this. Why it happened like that? Because Narada had a prema chakshu. Whereas Ajamila, he was only having Brahminical status. He was not a Vaishnava. He didn't chant the holy name. So his avidya seeds were there in the heart still. So avidya anjan and prema anjan. That's what made the difference. So when we scrutinizingly and deeply study the pastimes, and when we read Prabhupada's Second Chance book, very nicely he elaborates these things, very thoroughly. And we are followers of Narada's parampara, so we have to act like Narada even in such dirty situations, So in this way, we study contemplatively. Second thing, reflection means the applicability of the Bhagavatam knowledge in our everyday life. For example,
very important, yes, very important.
Like one purport, how Prabhupada writes purport, you see, Tidikshaya, Karunaya, Maitriya, Chakila Jantushu, Samatpena cha Sarvatma, Bhagavan Samprasidati. Here Prabhupada says Tidikshaya means tolerance. And who should tolerate, he says? The juniors should tolerate the seniors, he says.
Yes.
And they should cultivate tolerance and not protest against them or override their authority. And then he says, Karunaya means the seniors should show compassion to juniors. Then I had a question in mind. If seniors are showing compassion to juniors, then how can the juniors not be tolerant with seniors? I asked this question. Then I got the answer. Another place Prabhupada says, in general, seniors are compassionate. Occasionally, they may chastise. And the juniors should know that because always he is compassionate to me, but in this one instance, he is very angrily firing me. It is for my good he is doing this. Therefore, they should tolerate. So this is the beauty of Prabhupada purport. You can connect from one purport to another, and we can, and therefore it is like a very delightful big meal, like a Mahaprasad plate on a festival day, So so I do this reflection. Then third one, plan of action means, okay, how will I modify my behavior next time when I encounter a similar situation? This time I collapsed or I broke down. I had to break my relationship with the Vaishnava because of becoming upset or whatever. So next time what I will do if I face with this current knowledge that I have received from Srimad Bhagavatam, how I will act alternatively. So that is plan of action we make. So I feel that our study, I don't study too fast in Prabhupada books. I study contemplatively. Therefore, when I travel in the train from Pune to Kharagpur and all, Calcutta and all, many people tell me, Raisham Prabhu, it's a 36 hours train. We will arrange a flight ticket for you. They'll tell me, I'll tell them, no, I want to come in the train only because I want to study. At the time, I study almost 20 hours. When I go in the train, I go to the berth, I don't talk to anybody. I sit with the books, I study, I catch up with many of the sections that I'm going to speak in the subsequent days. I underline and I can contemplate. Nobody can disturb me there. And also I go in the second class often for one reason, because we learn to live like the other people, common people. And so we don't live in a very cozy world, comfortable world. You travel in the simple berth, you sit in the top and you read, chant. And then I will also preach for a few hours in the last 2-3 hours before I get down from the train. So I feel that when we make note of the things, when we think about them, and also as we read more and more of Prabhupada, you see Prabhupada speaks about one thing in other places also.
Yes.
We can even gather those things together and see.
And surely after those 20 hours, those others who must be sitting nearby you, they must be thinking, who's this sadhu? And when you start to speak, they're inquisitive because they've seen you all the path reading for 20 hours.
They asked me, is there any exam or something? They would often tell me, why don't you come down and relax for some time? They will give me fruits. They'll tell me to relax. And they will ask me, you are like a college going student, sitting and studying. What happened? Any exam or something? Actually, I
want to ask you something more on this topic of contemplation, proper mood. I want to take it from a different angle and ask you, you've described what is the right way to do it. Can you share with us what you have observed as the wrong mood of approaching Srila Prabhupada's books? Is there a wrong mood? If yes, then what are the wrong attitudes, dispositions, and moods by which one can actually destroy one's life? Still look at the letter, but never get the spirit of Prabhupada's instructions.
Yeah. Some people, Prabhu, they have a preconceived notion that Prabhupada is too strong. They have a preconceived notion. They feel that now it's a postmodern age. You have to be very mild in approach. This kind of straightforward preaching will not do. We should not tell people the truth directly. Actually, even when we go to colleges, we also take topics like art of mind management and things like that. But we just do one program, that's all. Immediately after that, we'll get to the philosophy. Immediately. Because when you do one program, you can get 500-600 people. But when you get into Krishna conscious philosophy, you get about 80-100 people you get.
Yes.
And down the line, you may get 20-30 people whom you can cultivate very well.
Yes.
But there are some people who think that we should not tell about Krishna, we should not tell about Prabhupada, we should not show we are ISKCON, So I don't agree with this, because if you are going to keep Prabhupada away, keep ISKCON away, keep Krishna away, in the name of, saving people, we will actually be cheating people in the long run. Neither will those people become proper devotees, nor we will lose our souls. We will not have our soul. Actually, for us to absorb our consciousness in being Krishna Das and Prabhupada Anuga, for that, it's better to be honest in our preaching. And there are good number of people now having enough faith in Bhagavad Gita now, all over the world now. It has become a very, very popular book now. We should not, this is the first thing I want to say. Don't fear your identity as a devotee, I would say. When I used to go to company, I had a Kantimala, I had Tilak also. Everybody knew I am Hare Krishna. There is no problem. People know, and many would wish me Hare Krishna in the morning also. So I would request devotees, don't fear in giving Prabhupada books to others. Even if he doesn't accept all, anyway people are not accepting, at least you give and try, some may accept also. So I tell them like that. So the second thing is, some people actually finish the quota of studying Prabhupada books. They say that, I have finished this week's sadhana card quota of reading this many hours, now half an hour or 1 hour. They say they have read. But it's like a person, if you take a lens and if you take a paper, only if there is a focal point, then only then it will burn the paper. Otherwise, if you are shaking the lens or if you are holding it in an improper position, it cannot burn the paper or cotton. In the same manner, the study is not very focused. Like you ask them, okay, you have read 40 pages. What you found in them interesting? So many people. Therefore, I want to thank my Bhakti Shastri teachers and all, like Atul Krishna Prabhu, Purnachandra Maharaj and all, because they taught us through the 12 aims of Shastric study, knowledge, understanding, personal application, preaching application, theological application, faith and conviction, mood and mission, Shastra Chakshu, responsibility for learning, all these things, authority, all these things. So now whenever I read, as soon as I read a purport, the first thing I will ask, what is the main theme that Prabhupada is saying here? And what is the second theme he is saying here? What examples, analogies he has given here? And which other purport of Prabhupada and other chapters connects with this? What other examples can be considered for this? Which other shlokas in different parts of Bhagavatam? So I very much believe in studying in a way where we can draw different references from Prabhupada books only. And that will make the reading very, very interesting. For example, if somebody asks me, Prabhuji, how can I serve Krishna? I'll tell them, go to 11.55, Bhagavad Gita. Mat karma krit, mat paramo, mat bhakta sangha varjita. So there Prabhupada talks how a rich man and poor man should engage. If somebody is saying that, Prabhu, I want to support your organization in some way, I want to donate the land or something, immediately 12.10, Bhagavad Gita, you can go. Prabhupada says, be sympathetic to the propagation of Krishna consciousness by giving a land or something like that, he says. And somebody says, Prabhu, is it really necessary to be very strict in our morning program? Immediately tell them, go to 3.30, Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says there, Mayi Sarvani Karmani. Prabhupada writes in the second line there, Krishna consciousness should be executed as if it's a military discipline. He writes that. So, in this way, somebody says that, Prabhuji, is it all right if I somehow or other do the ritual of chanting and go on with my life? Then I would tell them, go to Manmanabha Madbhakto. That Prabhupada says, don't be official meditator, Prabhupada says. So what I would do is capture these very vital words that Prabhupada uses in various places.
Yes.
And the examples he uses. In Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says, pure devotee is like a cow, peacefully maintained by a farmer, and she simply gives milk. Whenever he gives food, she eats. So the devotee should be like a well-oiled machine, Prabhupada says. Two examples he says, like a well-oiled machine and like a cow. So after I read that, I felt I want to become like this with my spiritual master. I don't want to give any headache to him. Just be like a cow and like a well-oiled machine. So now you think deeply about this well-oiled machine. If you see there are some fans, you put the regulator 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, same speed. They won't change the speed. Some devotees are like that. You can never regulate them. So no matter you change the regulator, they go in their speed on. So when you read Prabhupada's examples, they are very colorful examples he gives, very graphic examples he gives. So
and you just mentioned now, Prabhu, that some devotees have a tendency to just finish the quota. I mean, that's also good. At least they started.
That is Niyama Agraha. Niyama Agraha means rejecting the principle. Niyama Agraha means namesake accepting principle. That is actually at least better that they are having a quota to complete. But why I am saying that they should actually study in a very particular way, specific way, because if you don't derive taste in studying it, then we may not return to it again. There is a possibility.
And the taste would only come when you follow through to what you said, contemplation, observation, contemplation, plan of action. Because we are all after some artha.
Yeah, correct.
We really want benefit. If if I get benefit, then I will continue.
Yeah, correct.
And there should be tangible benefit that I'm able to see.
Yeah.
You also give a very beautiful example of focus, that lens and the focus.
Yeah.
When you were talking about the fire, I was thinking about Kleshagni. I was thinking about fire, which should actually burn the anarthas.
Yeah.
Otherwise, on the surface, we are not able to, no focus, then we're not able to burn.
Yeah.
Prabhu, what are your thoughts? What would you say to devotees who read? They read systematically, they make notes, they collect. But often the motivation is, not often, sometimes, I take my word, sometimes the motivation is more to impress, but not to link to the parampara, to Srila Prabhupada, give the credit where it is due. What happens if one goes down that path?
Yeah.
Earlier you talked about Ajamil's example, and I was thinking about this question.
Yeah.
That he had jnana, he had, you said avidya chakshu.
Avidya chakshu, avidyanjana.
Yeah, avidyanjana. So please share with us, what happens if one goes down that path? Because it's very attractive, you see. Every word that Prabhupada says, we go and speak in front of everyone, they start bowing down to us.
Yeah, correct. That's true, yeah.
So please share something that you may have noticed.
Yeah. One of the things that I like very much, I learned from His Grace Devakinandan Prabhu, is whenever we were all together in one committee called the Bhagavata Kathakars Committee. And there is a committee, and he is the chairman. I am his secretary in that committee. So he used to bring posters where the speaker will put his picture very big and prominent, and Prabhupada would be very small in one corner.
Yes.
Or there will be no Prabhupada photo at all, and there will be no Prabhupada's name, founder Acharya and all that will not be there. And often the speaker may say that, I don't know, this was made by the organizers and things like that. So nowadays, after I learned from Devakinandan Prabhu, I understood that, how important it is for us to, give the due regard and respect for Prabhupada as a founder Acharya of our society. So I have
Yes.
told all the people who make my posters that my photo should be only 1/3 of Prabhupada's size. It's a standard, I've told them. And you should put Prabhupada above my head, and you should put Prabhupada very prominent. I should be 1/3 of the small photo you should put. And also, if somebody promotes me overly, then I will not go to such places. So we have to, our preachers, I feel that they may say, these are all external. Why do you emphasize on this? No, externals are not less important. They are also important. External. And some people say, we don't want to actually introduce Prabhupada first. First, we want to do this. Saying like this, many people have taken the movement somewhere else only.
Oh.
So therefore, nowadays I am studying and giving classes from a book called Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani, where His Holiness Shivaram Swami Maharaj, page after page, he gives quotations of Prabhupada, from Prabhupada's letters, Prabhupada's books. And his goal of that whole book is to bring Prabhupada in the center of ISKCON, and Prabhupada's teachings, bringing back that old 1970s ISKCON with its purity with which Prabhupada established Shuddha Bhakti as the pivotal teaching of our movement is trying to bring. So I speak about it, and I also try to live it from my life also. And if people actually don't give the due credit to Srila Prabhupada and don't put him at in his original place and accept the subordination to him, in the long run they will be disempowered. They may be, or we may say Mandanam Loka Ranjanam, we say, no? They may be popular amongst fools. Actually, one may be popular amongst many fools. That doesn't actually make one great. Actually, it is better to guide one person.
I want to hear that statement. I want to hear that statement again. It's a very.
I was telling that actually, if there are many fools who actually have reservation about Krishna, reservation about Prabhupada, reservation about pure devotional service, and they want to be pampered, and they want their mind and senses to be pampered. Actually, there are good number of organizations for them, which are ready to pamper their false ego and keep them submerged in samsara ocean. And I don't want to be one of them. On the other hand, Ekaschandra Tamohanti Nachitara Sahasrashaka, Prabhupada says, one moon is better than many stars, he says. Actually, Prabhupada produced many moons. Therefore, that book by His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj said many moons, many great souls. Actually, His Holiness Satyavrat Maharaj says that if you bring one moon, that moon will attract many moons, then there will be quality, quantity, he says. Initially, there will be quality, but eventually it will be quality, quantity, he says. So, definitely, there should be sufficient regard and respect given for the founder Acharya. Actually, we have to learn from two organizations. One is the Sri Sampradaya. Now the 1000th year of Ramanujacharya is going on. And how much people talk about Ramanuja and think of him, we can understand,
Actually, in Sri Sampradaya, you can't talk about Sri Sampradaya without Sri Ramanujacharya. It's indifferent. It's the same. Sorry to interrupt, but this thought came to me because
that is true,
that's how it is coming.
Yeah. And in the same manner, in the Ramakrishna Math also you will see, although there are many sannyasis, there are many gurus, Prabhupada actually told ISKCON devotees that you should see their systems.
See the model, yes.
See the model, see the systems. So if you see their model, they also have many gurus, many people getting initiation and all, giving initiation and all. But the founder of the movement is put in a very prominent position. So it's not forgotten down the line. I feel that in ISKCON that emphasis should not be forgotten. If you forget, then everything will become scattered away.
And actually, that's how we make Srila Prabhupada the preeminent Siksha Guru and our founder Acharya.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And also I tell all the students always that Prabhupada is actually marching ahead in the war against Maya, and behind him all the gurus are walking, and behind them, so they are like Maharathis for us, and we are like foot soldiers. We are running behind them.
Very beautiful example.
If we see like this, then we are behind, above, in front of us, all the gurus are there. In front of them, Prabhupada is marching and guiding everybody. He is the commander-in-chief, Senapati Bhakta. So with this understanding, actually, there can be cohesion within the movement, give and take, and sharing can happen very nicely as one big family, under the auspicious shelter of Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. Yeah.
Correct, Prabhu. And you use the word auspicious shelter, and by this analogy, I can understand that one feels protected all the time. You know, it's
Yeah.
a very different mentality. In
Yeah.
one mentality, you're alone. You're trying to prove yourself or
Correct.
to show that you're great.
Yeah.
Whereas in the other example that you very beautifully given, the Senapati right in front and then followed by his followers, and then we are a foot soldier. I already feel so comfortable, you know.
Yeah.
There is going to be support from
Yeah.
front and from behind.
Yeah,
It's a
that is
very wonderful thought, Prabhu. Beautiful thought. Prabhu, I want to ask you
yeah.
one more question, which is, you are so moved by Srila Prabhupada's message. You've lived your life. Just you're saying, I want to just live my life like this. What about your community and your congregation and wherever you go? What are you doing there in terms of systems, processes, programs
Yeah.
to make the same mood
Mm.
go to every level of the organization that you are
I can
created or you
say,
continue to create?
yes, Prabhu. Like for our, we call voice centers, Vedic voices for inspiration, culture, education, voice centers. In all our voice centers, every semester, each inmate or a resident student has to complete 6 books of Prabhupada. We have prescribed syllabus we have. Each semester, they complete six books. So by the time they graduate after 4 years, they have completed all the small and medium-sized books and Bhagavad Gita. They have completed already, fully. And then they have begun with Srimad Bhagavatam like that. That's one of the things we do. And also in our training programs, we complete about 50 to 60 Prabhupada Speaks Out from the Back to Godhead magazine. So dialogues of Prabhupada. That is also one thing we do.
Yes.
Another thing we do is every year during the marathon time, last year I had gone to 650 Bhagavatam sets. We call it as a Bhagavatam installation in the homes. Yeah.
Yes.
So every year I do that. During November, December, I do that. Now also I did for Bhadra Purnima also. Bhadra Purnima we did. So I have taken at this time 500 sets target I have taken. So we do this kind. So first my goal is to reach Bhagavatam to the homes. Then Gali Gali mein Bhagavatam study circle. Every Gali.
Yes.
So then I have made a program guidance on how to conduct the study circle also, which I have given to many leaders.
Oh.
Yeah, we do that, and they are all conducting Bhagavatams in different parts, different places.
You should also share it with us at the ministry. We like to share it with everyone, this program of Bhagavatam study circles.
Yeah. Actually, I got this inspiration from Zolan Jayapataka Maharaj talked about this Godruma Kalpatavi, you know?
Yes,
Godruma Kalpatavi.
Yes.
And from that, he had made the Bhakti Vriksha model. I heard Bhakti Thakur had more than 2,000 such circles he had. Although he was sitting in Godrum Dweep, he was actually...
And sending only letter. Sending only letter. Yeah, by letter he preached.
Yeah, correct. So I would like to also see hundreds and thousands of such circles increasing in future, all studying Prabhupada's Bhagavatam regularly. Therefore, I myself went to Govardhan Eco Village. For a couple of years, I studied Bhagavatam. I am teaching also here Bhagavatam also in Pune. Yeah.
And what message do you want to give to devotees who have a job, devotees who have a family, who are otherwise, engaged in so many other things? Is this applicable also for them? If yes, then how is it applicable?
Yeah, one example I'll give. In Pune, we have 2 devotees, Mukundanand Prabhu and Brajanand Prabhu, 2 counselors. Every day morning, Prabhu, 7:30 to 7:50, they do 20 minutes Bhagavatam study over Zoom with their own counselees. They have about 30-40 people joining them. So they do online, they are doing, and last 1 year they are doing regularly, every single day they do. So I am very confident Grihasthas, if they are inspired, they will do it surely. And we want to bring...
By this inspiration, I wanted to share with you for about 4.5, 5 months now, ever before the lockdown started, because we were embarking upon this program, and I felt it would be only lip service. So in Kanaya Desh, I don't want to give the name out, in Middle East, but now you'll be happy to hear, for 6 months, every single day, the householders, the devotees are getting together and doing half an hour Hindi and half an hour English reading of Bhagavatam.
Really?
And everybody is feeling enlivened. Yes.
Everybody joins in Zoom, they join?
Zoom, yes.
Okay.
And we mentioned to our pracharak, especially the preachers, I said, this is part of the sadhana chart for at least the preachers. You must participate. Otherwise, what is the point?
Correct. Brilliant.
What other systems you have? What other systems you have which others can implement in terms of spreading?
Actually, I do one program called Krishna Rasayanam in Pune.
Yes.
Every month, I've been doing 2 hours. In those days, in lockdown period, I'm doing daily lectures, online lectures I do. But otherwise, when lockdown was not there, I do monthly ones for Hindi, monthly ones for English, 2 hours. It is actually, we take one section, like Ajamala Upakhyan, if we take, I'll complete it in about 10 sittings or so.
Correct.
6 sittings or 8 sittings like that. So in this way, I must have completed about, say, 20 sections of Bhagavatam, 20 different upakhyanas from Srimad Bhagavatam like that. So when people come for those sections, because I am speaking it, I will also tell them to read the same section.
Yes.
Like if I'm doing Ajamila for say 4 months, I'm doing. So they will all be taking that section of 6th canto and they will be studying also. And they find it very interesting to study because they come with questions also, to ask questions in the class.
Correct.
Everybody is on the same page. Then Bharat Maharaj, then Chitraketu Maharaj, like that, Ambarish Maharaj, one section we take like that. That's for the congregation.
That's such a nice system. And the congregation devotees must be really benefiting it from it, Prabhu.
Yes, yes.
And like this, then they can gradually also do their own complete Bhagavatam studies, one section. Like
and it is easily available on net, krishnarasayanam.radheshamdas.com.
Okay.
You can see sometimes.
Well, I will request all the viewers who are watching this to visit the Slate program, to visit the Krishna Rasayanam program. And also, Prabhu, as I requested, we'd like you to share with us how you're establishing this Bhagavatam study circles in every nook and corner. And Kali, the word that you use. Radhesham Prabhu, we are constrained by only time in this particular discussion. But I am going to beg you and request you for some more time again, where we can come back and continue our journey to hear from you about how Srimad Bhagavatam and Srila Prabhupada's books, after becoming part of your life, are now becoming part of the life of everyone that you are guiding and bringing into this movement. I'm very grateful for your time today.
Thank you.
I hope you'll give us time again.
Oh, surely, Prabhu. Welcome. Actually, it's a joy to get a chance to glorify Prabhupada and the most valuable gift of his Bhaktivedanta purports. Because it is what actually is I can say it's like life force, which is actually giving me, inspiration and a very strong feeling of a sense of spiritual identity and shelter. And I also feel that, the Harinam Sankirtans in the street and the distribution of the Prabhupada books should be given more emphasis in all the ISKCON temples. Because in Prabhupada's times, this was a very great emphasis. Now the emphasis is a little bit going behind. If this can be brought in the forefront, our movement has a very bright future. Because then people receive the books, and we also give them books, we read the books, we tell them from the books, everything will happen very nicely. And let us not get distracted by the self-help books and by the motivational topics and many other topics. Let us study Bhagavatam, let us preach Bhagavatam, let us distribute the books to Harinam Sankirtan, remain normal devotees without going, one shloka I will tell Puja in conclusion from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Yanna prajantagavido rachana anuvadat shinvanti yenya vishayako katamati gnihi yastu shruta hata bagai nrivirat saras tam kshipanti asharaneshu tamas suhantaha. This is told by Brahmaji to all the demigods. He's telling Yanna prajanti agavido, the Supreme Lord is Agabit, means he is the destroyer of sin. And his rachana means his katha, should be studied, relished and spoken to others. If one doesn't do this, ye anya vishaya kukata matigni, saying, then one will definitely read other books and which will destroy one's intelligence, he says. And one will lose the shelter of the Lord and one will be cast into dark hell, and it is a very deadly place. He says, hanta means alas, how unfortunate it is that people don't take advantage of the Lord's pastimes and they're reading other books and they're polluting themselves and polluting others. Like that, Brahmaji is saying very strongly. So I also feel we have to resume back what Prabhupada originally gave in his personal days and overseeing the movement. I consider them like golden days and it should be brought back, surely. Thank you, Prabhu.
We are hopeful, Prabhu, with your inspiration. And I feel nourished, very nourished today. And as you know, Prabhu, we are making this effort of the International Shravanam Week, or the book dedicated to reading Srila Prabhupada's books. It is not a substitute for our own personal everyday reading. It's not a substitute for a Bhagavatam class, but just a concentrated effort to meet with senior devotees, leaders, and request them that in every one of their centers, they must celebrate the joy of reading Prabhupada's books and give that intoxication to all of their members. So please pray for us that words spoken by yourself and other devotees who are participating in this can inspire many devotees, which we are going to now continue to publish at the Ministry of Education website and our YouTube channel, so that even for many years later on, devotees can come back and appreciate how it was when the first generation and the second generation were able to relish Srila Prabhupada's words. I'm grateful for your time, Prabhu.
Thank you for your good work, Prabhu. I have been hearing all those recordings. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhu. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and all glories to Srila Prabhupada's transcendental Bhaktivedanta purports. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.